I heard people try to speak crazy things about Pesach that I never heard before. Then again, I did hear it, but it was from an academic setting. So to hear people that's supposed to be Bible believers using this academic setting rhetoric kind of confused me.
Is it unique? Is this festival unique to Israel? Or was this a mismatch of various Semitic festivals that God now uses?
Because I'm like, do you really know what this academic people are saying?
So I'm going to answer yes. Right? Based on what we've read, there were similar festivals prior there being a Israel.
You're using it because you want to try to say, see, I can point out stuff about Pesach just like you can point out stuff about Easter.
So it had pagan origins.
But in essence, those people that you're using are saying they don't believe in the Bible at all. At all. And I'm like, these are the people you're using? Okay.
There is a flashback. Shalom, 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 everyone. Shabbat shalom, everyone. There is a flashback from a couple of years ago when the show first started off. So you see things look kind of fuzzy. Wasn't like we got it together now. Now it's like you like, oh man, you on point with it now. That was a while back. I just wanted to show that old commercial. But anyway, just wanted to just deal with that. Just showing you how that situation went and so forth. All right, everyone. So we're going to get started with this. We'll jump right into everything. As you know, this is Shabbat. And on Shabbat, we deal with Torah issues. This is Shabbat Chol HaMo'ed Pesach, or the Sabbath of Pesach. We're going to be dealing with Passover, and the video we're going to be watching tonight is actually that video from a couple of years ago, where Brother BK, apologist, tried to have a mini assault on Passover. And we're going to get into why would he do such a thing and all of that in a minute. Hey, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom. Oh, goodness. Hey, Shabbat Shalom, my key. Oh, my goodness. Got our brother in the building. Wow, I feel honored to have you in here, Aki. I really, really feel honored to have you in here. Shabbat Shalom, Aki. Our brother, Divine Prospect, is in the building. Like, wow, that is something real big right there. Appreciate you for being on here with us, Aki. All right, we want to jump right into this. This again is from a couple of years ago. We still going to get into this knowledge and break some things down. So y'all know how I do on Shabbat. I want to get you into Torah. Shabbat show is not like the other shows, so you're not going to hear me talking about any products or any sponsors or anything like this. This show is all about Torah, all about trying to come up with a way to get you to be involved in Torah, to try to get you to be closer to Torah, you know, and that's our whole purpose. Amen. That's our whole purpose for tonight's show, just to get you to whet your appetite to want to know more about the Torah. All right, so we're going to get right into that. Now, again, if you don't know who I am, my name is Rosh Ya'acob ben Abraham. I am the Rabbi at Gethsemane Spiritual Temple Congregation. On this show, we deal with Torah issues, whether it's dealing with the breaking news on Monday, or now we got criminal justice on Tuesday, and that show kind of took off a little bit. And that was the first day, right? And also we got questions and answers Wednesday, where I try to tackle those hard questions. So if there's any questions or stuff people got about the Torah that they feel like people can't answer, I'm right there to answer those questions for you all. And of course, yesterday on Thursdays, we have our rules of engagement Thursdays, and we try to really get into building up the kingdom and just dealing with family and relationships and all that thing, whether it's being a father, a mother, a wife, a child. We deal with all those different issues that we have going on in our community, stuff that a lot of times we don't talk about. We kind of just let it just slide, but we're trying to hammer those things down, because those are the things that's going to help us to build up our community. Amen. All right, so with that being said and done, want to get right into today's show. Now, of course, because it is me on a video, I feel weird having me on a video screen and me in a corner somewhere. So I'm going to be going back and forth, and I'm going to just try to explain what it is that we're saying, because the brother tonight, he's real. And I know brother Divine Prospect, respect is this brother tries to be real analytic. I'm pronouncing that word wrong. He tries to really be technical when he breaks down things. He's an apologist, and so we're gonna get right into it. So let's go right into it. And y'all see how it starts off. It's like, at that time I wasn't thinking about adding music to the beginning, and then I came up and I started doing this. I said, okay, so you gonna see the progress as you look at this from 2 years ago to today. You gonna see a lot of progress. I looked back at it early. I was like, wow, this is a lot of growth. All right. Shalom, 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 everyone. Thank all of y'all for logging on for this episode. Yeah. Thank all of y'all for logging on for this episode. Oh, man, you can just tell the rustiness, but hey, let's keep it moving. My take with Rosh Ya'acob. I am Rosh Ya'acob. Got a good one for you guys tonight. Thanks to the BK apologists. I appreciate him for letting me use his content. I seen this in one of the groups. I'm actually in a group with the BK apologists, and he tagged me along with everyone else in this video. And when he tagged me along with everyone else in this video, I was like, okay, let me check it out. And I was in shock at what I heard, and I was like, wait a minute. And I had to listen to it a couple of times because it really took me aback. Hey, shalom, brother Tony. Shalom. All right, so flash forward. We're going to flash from keep flashing backwards and forward. All right, so we're going to flash forward. So what happens is I looked at the video and I was familiar with a lot of the works that he was using because I used those. Like I'm going to say, I used it in my undergrad when I was at Morgan. Also, some of the works he's going to use are as he used in the yeshiva. We had this biblical class with archaeologists, and it seemed like everything was going to be real spiritual and religious, and it wasn't. And I'll never forget all the different things that I went through. So you're going to see me trying to break that down and explain that as we go forward. So I'm going to try to fast forward a little bit to get us to where we need to be. So let me go back here. So try to get us a little forward. I think it's probably about right here. Hilarious. Anyway. All right. So as y'all seen from the title page, just going to go back to that. And it says it's Passover Pagan, right? And this is one where the apologist, hey, shalom, Makoti. Glad to see you in the building. And you can see this is before I knew how to get the people words up on the screen. So now I know how to bring you up on the screen so I can see when you type stuff and everybody can see it, because it looked like I'm in a room and people just popping in and I'm talking to them. But at that time, I actually had the chat up, but only I could see it, and those people at the time that was on the live. But other than that, the people that was looking at the video couldn't see it. And once I figured out how to do that, I said, okay, so you see that's one difference. So you see people keep popping on saying shalom to me and I'm speaking to them, but everybody's not able to see it. They just hear me talking to people, but they don't actually get to see what it is. So I tried to switch that up. All right, so let's get into this. And we're going to start off. I'm going to try to get what I do like about BK when he does these different videos. He only spends about a half hour. So we should get through this whole thing. That's what I'm counting on. We should. I thought we was going to get through this whole thing, but by me trying to be so precise and go through everything that he said, I went through everything that he said, because sometimes people say they're going to deal with issues or deal with stuff that people talking about, and they don't really deal with it. It will say, oh yeah, I'm going to deal with this, but then they just touch on part of it, and then it seems like they don't deal with other part, and they give people the false illusion, oh, you must couldn't answer that part because you didn't deal with that. So I like being precise. I like being really, really going in and trying to make sure I explain everything. I don't like, I had to start getting myself used to it. Like Zakane used to tell me, he said, man, you can't tell everything. And I had to train myself with that. Like, okay, let me just say this part. Then if I had to come back, I will. But at this time, I'm dealing with everything. And I think I did like 3 parts to this. So if you go back, you can see all the parts. So I'm going to be talking through this. So if y'all want to actually see it, I got the description for this video like I said, the description. I got the link for this video in the description below if you actually want to watch it without me interrupting and talking and all that good stuff. I got the whole thing, and then also you can go to the playlist and see the other 2 videos that go along with it as well. Get through this whole thing. All right. And he does have some good content. I don't agree with him on this one. Some videos he have, I do agree with him on certain things. But this one, I was like, where in the world is he going with this? So it kind of really took me by surprise. And for most of y'all, especially those of us who are celebrating Pesach, celebrating Passover, in this Passover season of HaMoed or unleavened bread, and this is the last day of it. It started once nightfall happened or began. For most of us, it's like, what in the world is he talking about? And you'll see exactly what I mean. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and click on to his video. All right.
Is Passover pagan?
So that was his introduction. So I'm gonna try to get past his. He got a little jazzy introduction. At this time, I was vibing off of people introductions. I had a bunch of people I used to do videos on. And I would jam off their introduction with them. So let me go back, try to get right back to after this introduction. All right, here we go.
Go by the name of the BK Apologist, transmitting all the way live. New York is the city. Brooklyn is the borough.
Let me turn this up a little bit.
Hope everybody's doing well. Of course, we gotta say what's up to the party people in the chat. We got Wawo first to be in the chat. Way to go! And of course, we have the indelible, incredible.
You see, he doing the same thing I'm doing. He's sitting there talking to people in the chat, just like what I was doing earlier. I'm gonna see if I can get past him talking to the different people in the chat. And see if we can get to where it get to. I don't want to hold y'all up too much.
Big festival celebrating the rescue of Israel from the house of bondage. Right. But if that's such a great thing, why am I even talking about it within terms of paganism? Right.
All right. Now, yes, it was a rescue. It was a deliverance. I like to use the word deliverance. But I can see where he's coming in with rescue, so I'm not going to nitpick. But again, yeah, like you said, if that's such a good thing, which of course it is, then why is he trying to equate it with paganism? Let's look further to find out.
So you have to, so you got to stick to the end to see why am I even having this discussion with you guys. And the 2 questions I will want us to be able to answer is 1, does Passover have pagan origins? And 2, is Passover itself a pagan festival? Right? So with that being said, let's get into the slides. All right, we're going to look at Exodus, a commentary, the Old Testament library by Martin Knoll.
All right, now I'm going to stop and look at all of these works that he's using because for those of y'all who've seen the promo video I did for this, for those of y'all who've seen the promo, y'all would know that there's a lot going on with these different authors that he's going to be quoting from. Many of these authors I've heard of from religious courses I had at Morgan State University. Big up MSU. You know it. You know. I know that came from somewhere else, but I'm going to add that in for Morgan. You know, yeah, big up them bears. Anyway, so we had a religious course. I told y'all that my corniness going to become funny one day. Y'all going to be like, man, this guy cracks me up. He's so corny. All right. So, at Morgan State University, it had this religious course, and a lot of people took it because they felt like it was going to be talking so good about the Bible. And one thing that all of us learned quickly is that in theologian school or theology courses, for the most part, they do not teach you in a way to make you believe in the Bible. Now, I'm trying to lay this out because the works that he's going to use is going to be trying to disprove the Bible itself. He's trying to use it to disprove Pesach. He's trying to use it to come at Pesach because people in the Hebraic community was getting on him about celebrating Easter. So he felt like, oh, you guys want to say something about me doing Easter? Well, I'm going to show you how Passover is pagan. And then he begins to use these different works. But the works, what he don't understand about the works, or maybe he do understand it, right? And I'm even going to say that because I believe he's very astute. So maybe he does understand it. But the works are speaking against the Bible. So it's like, how you say you believe in the Bible, but you're using stuff that says the Bible is not telling you the truth. How do you bridge that connection, right? So that's why I'm bringing this out, because I see this firsthand when I was young and I was at Morgan and I was in that religious class and I watched this teacher just try his best to get you not to believe in anything. Well, biblical. And that, which was the weird part, because he didn't mind you believing in Hinduism and Buddhism and all that other stuff. He kind of bigged that stuff up. But when it came to the Bible, he was on attack from the beginning to the end. You know, so that's what I'm getting into now, explaining that. I will repeat. They do not teach you to have faith and believe in the Bible. They teach you, what's somebody's birthday? Oh, happy birthday, whoever birthday it is. See, this is what they always tell you, don't pay attention to the chat. I'm supposed to be focusing and I'm sitting there looking at the chat. Stop paying attention to the chat, brother. Come on, let's keep it moving. Is your birthday, Sister Michelle? Oh my goodness. I'm not sure. Wow. Or it's not your birthday. This book was put together this way, that book was put together that way. And as you sit there and listen, you be like, oh my goodness, like, can I even believe this Bible? All right, so this is what I'm talking about now, is how in a biblical class, how they was trying to tell us how the different books was put together. And they wasn't telling us it was put together the way we are taught that it was put together. But they want to name certain things like a P source, a E source. Many people that's been in those circles are familiar with this. The E source stand for the Elohim sources, right? The Y source stand for the Yahwehist, right? Or that source, right? You got the P source for the priestly source, the L source for the Levitical source. They tell you about all these different sources and make it like somebody sitting there and just taking sources and tying all these things together. And that's what they try to get into your brain. So instead of you saying Moshe wrote the first 5 books, now you said it was some people during Ezra time that compiled all this stuff together, right? And that's how they try to drill it into you, right? So that's what I'm trying to point out as what I'm saying with the classes, the way they tell it to you, it make you be like, well, hey, can I believe any of this? Because, you know, once you start dispelling certain things, that take away the validity of the whole text. Because it's like, well, if they lying about this or they lying about that, then how I don't know they lying about this over here? You get what I'm saying? So that's the whole dynamic with that.
Right, and there was people there. It was a older woman there who was she was attempting to be I think she was there because she was attempting to get her degree in theology from Morgan, and she wanted to be a preacher. And she had a fit with this teacher. He would purposely say things to just destroy whatever faith you had. And she would just get so caught up in her feelings. And I would say, sis, you can't let them get you like that. You know, if you got faith, just have faith. You know, this is just a class. But she was just taking it to heart and just couldn't believe the things that this guy was saying. And the reason why I'm bringing it up is because if you look at this book right here, it says Exodus, a commentary, the Old Testament library by Martin Noth, right? One thing I want you to understand, in the Hebraic community, in Judaism, they do not call the Tanakh the Old Testament.
Facts.
Again, they do not call the Tanakh the Old Testament.
No, they don't.
So what we have to understand is this is a book written by a theologian named Martin Noth, who was a Christian.
Mm-hmm.
Now, of course, my brother BK is a Christian apologist. So it's understandable, of course, he's going to use works made by Christians. But in this sense, this guy who wrote this book is coming from a stance where he has this idea that, well, you know, they begin to say stuff in class like Jewish myth, like whenever they talk about the Bible or the old or the Tanakh, they would say Jewish myths, and then just roll off their tongue as easy as saying Greek myths, right? And their idea was that the Canaanites and the Israelites are the same people. That's how it's taught. And we want to see as we go further, and we want to even hear BK kind of allude to that, which made me think, well, maybe BK believes that.
And that was one of the vital things, especially in my archaeological class in the yeshiva. I remember, and BK is going to bring up some of these books that we actually used in the class. And I remember reading the books, and I'm sitting there thinking, what are y'all talking about? Like, but it was all focused on the people. Like, it wasn't as many people that came, like the Bible says, that came out of Egypt. It was some people that came out of Egypt. It wasn't that many. And a lot of the people that was actually in the land was the Canaanites. And that's why they had to destroy all the Canaanite idols and all that stuff. Because it was like the Canaanites was getting rid of those idols and stuff because now they was into something new. And I'm sitting there thinking, what in the world is going on? Like, oh man, my teachers had problems, especially at the yeshiva. Like, oh man, I almost failed that class. I ain't gonna lie to you, because I was just like, we supposed to be learning Torah. Like, how are you speaking against the Torah? Like, he was trying to get me to look at it differently. And so at the yeshiva, I had the problem like the sister had almost. I didn't get caught up with my feelings, though. I just used his words to prove my point. You know, because that was his thing. He said, well, I don't want to hear you. I want to hear the text. And when he said the text, even though it's a biblical class, he said they can't use the Bible as a source. I was like, you can't use the Bible as a source? Like, no, you gotta use other works and books as a source. And I was like, okay. But I made it through. But it was hard. It was hard. I ain't even gonna lie to you.
And And maybe that's why he's coming from it from this angle, because he kind of looks at it that way. Because clearly, as we get into the text, as we hear what he's reading, and then I go to different scriptures, we're going to see that the Bible is saying something completely different than what this commentator is saying in this theological work. The Bible is saying something completely different, right? All right, so let me let him go ahead and hear what this theologian has to say, and then we'll look at some scriptures and see what the Bible has to say.
No. It says here, the Passover sacrifice stands continually in the foreground. This sacrifice has its own special cultic prehistory, independently of the Feast of Unleavened Bread.
All right, now, did you hear that? I want to make sure you hear. I'm gonna read it. I'm gonna stop and read it with him. Let's read this with him. The Passover sacrifice, talking about the Pesach, right, stands continually in the foreground. This sacrifice has its own special cultic prehistory. All right, so how? I want you to think about this. According to the Bible, the Almighty told Moshe to do this as part of the 10th plague. And this isn't something that Moshe already knew about. This isn't something that the Israelites already knew about, because the Almighty is going to explain to them exactly how to do what it is that he wants them to do. But this theologian says, that he's quoting from Martin Noth, he says that it has a cultic prehistory. Notice the words he's using, right? Cultic and prehistory. That means this Pesach offering was already something that was done and known before the Almighty gave it to the Israelites.
Now, you can't say, and this is my spell on it. This is my take on it. You can't say that I'm a believer in the Torah and then endorse something that speaks directly against the Torah. You can't do that. I'm sorry. You can't do that. Like, you can't take something that's speaking directly against the Torah and say that you standing for the Torah. But again, he's only looking at this as just the Old Testament. I'm just, because, you know, when most Christians, they focus on the Brit Kadashah. Don't really focus on a Tanakh like that. They use the Tanakh as a reference when they want to prove something from the Brit Kadashah. Then they go to the Tanakh to kind of prove it, whatever they want to say from the Brit Kadashah. But the Brit Kadashah is the main source that they want to use. So I'm thinking that's why he don't feel too bad about saying this. Because this is crazy right now. Because you're saying, and I'm going to flash back to it so we can look at it. The Passover sacrifice stands continually in the foreground. How? How did it stand in the foreground? Then he says, this sacrifice has its own special cultic prehistory, independent of the Feast of Unleavened Bread. So, in other words, it don't have nothing to do with the unleavened Feast of Unleavened Bread. But yet the Tanakh and the Torah is telling us that it does. So my whole thing is, so who am I to believe? Am I to believe Mr. Noth? Or am I to believe the Torah? that was what I was thinking when he was doing this. I'm thinking, well, hold up, brother. Which one you going to believe? Right? So we're going to get back into it.
So the Bible is the standard. I will reference other things, but it must line up with the scriptures, period. Exactly, Okoti. Exactly. It got to line up with the scriptures. I can't just look at what this guy's saying, and that's the problem I had in those different classes. Now at Morgan, when I disagreed with the teacher and the books that was being used, as long as I could support it with the scripture, he'd say, well, maybe you're right. And he'll give me that, well, it could be as you see it. And he'll just leave it alone. You know, and that was fine for me. But the older woman, as I was telling you, she wanted him just to agree, and he would not agree. And he took great delight in watching her melt. One time she melted.
Now, also, and I didn't reference that, but I'm going to reference it now. At Morgan, that's how I was. If he said something, I could bring a scripture, I could show something, and I say, well, could it have been possible that it happened this way? And he'd be like, it could have been possible that it happened that way. Like, he wouldn't just go hard on it when I would bring something to him. But at the yeshiva, oh man, this guy was ready for me. It was like, he did not want me to use the Bible at all. I couldn't use the Bible at all. Imagine as you in a Bible class that's focusing on the Bible and somebody telling you that you can't use it at all. At all. You only can use these books that he's giving you as sources, and those books are making you a disbeliever, right? He making you look at it and say, did this really happen like this? This make you skeptical. I'm not pronouncing words right tonight. But y'all get what I'm saying. It makes you doubt.
Down so bad in the classroom, had to leave out and was in tears. And he just was sitting there looking smug. And I was like, wow, like you enjoying this, boy. You having fun right now. Picking these people, faith and dreams apart, right? But this, I want you to know this. So what this is hinting to is forget what you read in the Bible, that the Almighty just told Moshe to do this. This is something that was already being done way before unleavened bread even came about. That's what this guy, Martin Noth, is saying. Look at what he says. The Passover sacrifice stands continually in the foreground. This sacrifice has its own special cultic prehistory, independently of the Feast of Unleavened Bread. So he said, forget what you read in that Bible, right? That's what this guy, Martin Noth, is saying. I know what you're reading in the Bible, but I'm telling you, this was around way before it got into that Bible. Now, does that sound like somebody that supports and believes in the Bible, or somebody that's trying to get you to not believe in the Bible? Just want you to think about this, because I was surprised when I seen him use.
And that's another thing. The other thing I want you to look at when y'all thinking about this as well is he got upset because brothers was getting on him about Easter. Right? Easter's not in the Bible. That's that part where they had that translation part where it says Easter. That's really Pesach. They really talking about Passover right there. Not talking about Easter. You know, that was a mistranslation in the text. Just like when they have it where it actually says Yahshua, and it was talking about Yahshua from the Old Testament, or y'all would say Joshua, but they translate it as Jesus, because every time they saying that name in the Greek, they automatically translate it as Jesus, even though they know that it's speaking about Yahshua, and that's how they would have been thinking about pronouncing it. So in the book of Hebrews, they had that little part where it says, it's talking about Joshua. It says if Joshua didn't give them rest. But in a King James, it say Jesus. Right? Because they just showed the glitch in it. That's what they was looking at. And that's how you can tell, like, hold up. Y'all notice it say Joshua because it's closer to Yahshua. So why y'all got it saying Jesus? You know what I mean? Why y'all saying Jesus? You know, I talked about that on Wednesday when we had our question and answer class with the AI guy. I spoke about that.
Using these sources, I'm like, wait a minute, what is going on here? All right, let's look at what else is.
But that's the thing I want y'all to get though. We showing them that Easter's not in the Bible at all, and when you talk about Easter, we show them the origin of Easter and what Easter's about. He's trying to take something that is in the Bible and trying to discredit it. So that's the difference.
It says it almost certainly belonged to the milieu of nomadic shepherds, and thus without doubt goes back to the time before they settled in a cultivated region. So what nomadic shepherds are they talking about, or is Nos talking about that this belonged to? The only nomadic shepherds that the Torah taught us about was Abraham and Lot. So was this something that Abraham and Lot was doing? That's not who they're talking about. As you're going to see from when we hear BK talk about it, they're going to say this is something that Semitic peoples have done. Semitic people that was nomadic had done this. So they given an equation that says Semitic people that were nomadic has done this. Then that means that's what Abraham, Yitzhak, and Ya'acob was doing. And therefore, that's what their children knew. Therefore, this is nothing new to them. This is something that they already knew about, even though the Almighty is talking to them in a way that they didn't have any idea about this. I'm going to get to the scripture soon where you can see how this come about, but I want to let him build up his argument, and I want to slowly poke holes in it, and then I'll go into that so I can just keep with the teaching and don't have to go back and forth with it. So that's the way I've seen to do this. I said I'm just going to look at what he's saying, poke holes in it, and then by the time we get to the end, I'm going to break down the teaching on what is being said. But I want you to see what it's saying. It says, in this region were more or less settled possessors of flocks, were an unsubstantial element of the population. So again, it's talking about people that lived in that region. Well, the people that lived in that region that he's speaking to were Canaanites. Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov weren't Canaanites, not according to the Bible. But according to these theologians, that's who they were. According to the Bible, no, they wasn't no Canaanites at all, right? It says it was still celebrated and combined with the Feast of Unleavened Bread. So he's saying this is something that he was already celebrating, and all he did was just combine it with HaMoed, the Feast of Unleavened Bread, right? That's what he said. Even though scripture does not say that the Israelites already knew this and they was doing this, it says the Almighty told them to do these things. We're going to say it. I'm going to get there. I want to build up your anticipation. So I'm going to let him go ahead and read it off. But I just want you, as you hear what exactly a Koti. That's why I was surprised when he was using this, because I know this brother, is a professed Christian, Some thinking you gotta believe in the Bible in some kind of way. So you trying to tell me that the Bible ain't telling the truth? That I should believe this guy named Martin Noth and not what it says in the text? That's what it sounds like you telling me. But I digress. Let me go ahead and play the rest.
Stems from a different sphere of life from agricultural feasts of unleavened bread. For originally, it's almost certainly belonged to the milieu of nomadic shepherds, and thus without doubt goes back to the time before they settled in a cultivated region. In this region, where more or less settled possessors of flocks who are not unsubstantial element of the population, it was still celebrated and combined with the feast of unleavened bread. So what this commentary on Exodus is saying, that this Passover, the celebration of the unleavened bread, has a cultic prehistory. All right,
How?
so let's continue.
How, Sway?
Here in the dry season of the year, after the reaping.
Now, notice how I jumped into was like, how? Because you got to think about it. Unleavened bread came about because they didn't have time for the dough to rise. Remember, they had to leave the land in haste. They didn't have time for the dough to rise, so they left. So they cooked it real fast and didn't give it time to rise. They baked it unleavened and they left with the dough, right? That's what is told to us why in the Bible, not even just the rabbis saying it, right? Not even just the sages saying it. That's what it says in the Bible. That's what it says in the Bible. Why we keep unleavened bread, the feast of unleavened bread, right? So when you say, they had sources way before that, how? Because if it was for that, why wouldn't the Almighty just say, remember this feast and to keep it? Now you might say, does he ever say that? Yes, remember the Sabbath? That's what he said about the Sabbath. He said, remember the Sabbath and keep. So he showed us that the Sabbath had an origin before the 10 Mitzvot. Before the 10 Mitzvot, it shows us that the Sabbath already had an origin before that. And we even see that origin when you read in Bereshit, right? You even see that origin right there, where it tells us about him making this Shabbat and resting on the Shabbat. And then later with the 10 Mitzvot, he says, remember the Shabbat to keep it holy. And then he explains it. 6 days shall you labor and do all your work, but on the seventh day is the Sabbath. In it, you shall not do any work, right? And he breaks all that stuff down. If the Feast of Unleavened Bread was something from of old, why not just say, and remember the Feast of Unleavened Bread? Why say you celebrating this Feast of Unleavened Bread because of this? He even tells us when the children ask, why are you doing this? He don't say when the children ask. I know all of y'all, well, not all of y'all, but many of y'all that's on here watching may have been in a Seder on Saturday evening. Y'all might have had the Seder, right? Y'all know about the 4 questions that the youth are to ask. Those 4 questions actually come out of the Torah. And the question that the youth asks is, why do we do these things that we're doing? Eating unleavened bread and having this meal, and why are we doing this? This is what your children, it says when your children ask you this, you are to tell them that the Almighty brought us out with a strong hand. Right? The Almighty brought us out with a strong hand. Not, this is for some cultic prehistory that was before all of this, and we just equating this with this. That's what Martin Noth is saying. That's what BK is actually co-signing. Saying that this is how it was. But the scripture says something different. So if you say you a believer, how can you go against what the Torah is saying? That's where I want to see. You say you a believer. You say you believe. How are you going against the Torah? If you really believe, you're going to be like, nah. Like, when I look at the Torah, I judge history and everyday based on Torah. Like, somebody say I'm a fanatic with it, right? I love the Torah, right? So I'm looking at it, and I can even look at the Quran and base it off the Torah and get an understanding of it that many Islamic people won't get, because I'm using the Torah as the root for it. That's why I say when you use the Torah as the root for stuff, then all the stuff lay out and make sense. Because the Torah is the foundation. But when you don't do that, like, he's tearing up the foundation. That's why I felt like this was dangerous. That's why I felt like I had to deal with this, because you got this brilliant guy kicking his wisdom that is tearing or ripping the people away from the foundation of their faith, of their belief. But I'm gonna let him finish.
Of the fields, nourishment can still be found in their flocks, and when the work of cultivation begins again in the autumn, they return to their winter pasturage. The beginning of their travels, with the accompanying dangers of man and beast, especially for the newborn, of whom the firstborn was particularly precious, must have been occasion for a special animal sacrifice, primarily to keep away evil powers.
All right, now, this guy Martin Loth, boy, oh, you gotta love him. You gotta love him. No, you don't. Anyway, look at what he said. So now he goes on to show you, okay, they are nomadic, they're wandering, they're pasturing, they're leading their flocks to and fro, and they go in their travels and come back to where they started, and they got a certain pattern that they go as they travel, right? As he says that they're pasturage, right? Now, he talks about, it says the beginning of their travels with their accompanying dangers for man and beast. So now, as he's going to say, Martin Noth is going to give the idea that this offering that the Almighty told us was done because he's going to see the blood on the door and he's going to pass over the homes, right? That's what we told. We're going to get to it. I know most of y'all already know this, so I can kind of speak freely, but then I'm going to go in and prove the stuff later. So with this passage, right, this guy's introducing something new. He's saying, no. Originally, the offering was made because it was dangerous to travel and you wanted to have protection as you traveled. So that's why this was done. But you will notice when we get to reading about the Pesach offering, it said nothing about traveling. It didn't say anything about that offering was done to protect us during travel.
Now, yeah, I had to clear that up because it does tell us we're going to leave out the land. But what I meant by that was what Martin Noth is saying is that's done almost like a protection type offering where you doing this, you offering this offering up because you want the Almighty to grant you protection as you travel. Where the Torah doesn't say that at all. Matter of fact, the Torah says the reason why you offering the Paschal lamb up is not because you're traveling, but because the Almighty is going to go through that night in Egypt and slay all the firstborn sons, right? All the firstborn sons going to get slayed unless you got this blood from this lamb on your door. That's what's going to save you. It don't say anything about, oh, you got It don't say anything about, oh, you got this, you about to go on a journey, so go ahead and sacrifice this offering because you about to go on a journey. It doesn't say that at all, right? That's not the purpose for that offering. But I'm going to let him keep going.
But yet, Martin Noth says it was done to protect us as we traveled. Look what he says. Then he says, whom the firstborn were particularly precious. So now he's trying to tie in a thing about the firstborn, right? But it's not connecting because it had nothing to do with the firstborn traveling. The Torah was talking about the death of the firstborn, saying that the Almighty himself was going to go in the midst of Egypt and search out to see whose house had this blood on it or not. And if it was not found, then the firstborn would die. Now, after that, because that firstborn was saved by the Almighty from death because of the offering and because of the blood that was on the door post and the lintel, which made the letter Het, which I will show y'all in a minute. Because the blood was on the door post and the lintel, and the firstborn was saved, now the firstborn became special to the Almighty. Not particularly precious, as he said, but the preciousness and the specialness came about because now all that opened the womb, all the firstborn of man and beast belong to the Almighty, the Israelites, because of this act, because of him saving the firstborn of Israel. So it wasn't done because it was something special about them, so they made occasion for a special animal sacrifice. It had nothing to do with that. And then it says primarily to keep away evil powers. So we saying the Almighty is an evil power? Like, what's going on here?
Heaven forbid.
So I'm gonna let them read this.
Crazy like that.
Now remember, this is a biblical commentary, giving us some cultural background.
All right, now, this is not a biblical commentary in the sense of the different commentaries that you may read, especially from Torah perspective, where we have our commentators such as Rambam.
That's what I'm about to say. How much time I got left? All right, so I'm running out of time with this. I'm going to show y'all something, right? I'm going to show y'all something. Let me get to the point where I can show y'all what I want to show you. Because the brother talked about biblical commentary, right? And the way he's using it, our biblical commentary supports the Bible, tries to get you to get some understanding from the text. This stuff that he's calling biblical commentary is speaking against the Bible and trying to get you to disbelieve things that you're reading in the text, right? So I'm gonna go to Sepharia. Y'all know I love using Sepharia, right? And I'm gonna go right into here, and we're gonna see, because this is dealing with Pesach, right? And it's from Bashalak, but we're gonna go back because I want us to say about the all right, let's look at this part. Like, see how we talking about the firstborn, right? Oh, y'all can't see it. Oh, my bad, people. Y'all probably like, what is he talking about? See how this is? I'm sorry, but I'm a little excited. Right? Let me make this smaller so everything will fit in here better, so y'all will be able to see it better. All right. I was like, you probably like, what is he talking about? The world is he talking about? I can see it and see this part and that part. So watch this. I want y'all to see this. This is the verse right here. Now, Safari, I love them. Now you got the commentary right here, right? So I'm gonna click on the commentary. See how this commentary open up? Now, these commentators are not gonna be trying to get you to disbelieve what we reading right here. It says, when in time to come, a child of yours asks you, saying, what does this mean? Right? The child is asking you, why are we doing this? Remember I said that? Now the people that, you're not going to tell a child, oh, this is some cultic stuff from ancient times, and this was way before the Exodus, and we really doing it for that, and we bought stuff in and connected it. Y'all be able to see what he said in there, right? No, this is what it says. Watch this. Watch Rashi. This is what our commentators. Watch Rashi. It says, when thy son, ki yeshlach ben ka mahar. Oh no, machar, right? When thy son asks, right? There is a usage of the word machar that refers to now. In other words, to a period of time that's nearest to now, tomorrow. And there is another usage of machar that refers to the day following, after the lapse of time. For example, this machar here, and as for example in Joshua 22:27, where it says that your children may not say to our children in time to come, machar, which occurs in the chapter about the sons. So look how it's supporting the text, right? Y'all see how that was supporting the text? That's not taking away from the text. That's not saying, oh, believe what I'm saying over here and don't believe that text. It's not saying it. It's supporting it, right? I want you to see somebody else. Let's see what another commentator would do, right? He says, and it shall be, says Rabbi Judah Halevi of blessed memory, says that the word machar and time to come is missing an aleph, is meaning being that which comes after today, right? Not taken away from it. It's trying to get you to understand it. It's not taken away from it, trying to make you even up. We getting a little further. This 16th century, right? Getting a little further. We got Seforno, right? Look what the Forno says. Mazot, right? A reference to the unusual legislation of having to redeem the firstborn impure animal donkey, saying that its body could have been sanctified due to its inherited impurity. Similarly, the need to break the animal's neck as an alternative to redeeming it sounds peculiar to the son who's asking, right? So he's trying to get us to understand that the son is now asking, when it says, why are we doing this thing? Why in this redeeming process does it say, if I don't redeem the donkey, I gotta take an axe and chop at his neck to kill it? Why is it saying this, right? So again, none of the commentaries, I just want y'all to see this because the way he said it was, and remember guys, this is biblical commentary. Like, we should just believe it because Martin Noth wrote on a book, Biblical Commentary of the Old Testament. So we should automatically just run with him and believe what he's saying, right? Because that's what he says. But when you look at what it's saying, these commentators for the Tanakh and Judaism, it supports it. Even if I went out, even if I said, okay, I wanted to go out of there. Let's say I wanted to look at some Kabbalistic works. Now, this is a little deep for some of y'all, but I'm going to touch on this, right? And I want to go to the Zohar. I want to see what the Zohar says about that, right? It said, this accords with the rabbinic dictum that Elohim puts on phylacteries. That is, he takes up all the supernal crowns to with the emblem of the supernal Father and the emblem of the supernal Mother, these being the phylactery worn on the head, and then he takes up the right and left hand, thereby carrying the whole. Now, this is digging in and getting deep with this. I'm not going to explain all that other thing because it takes a lot of time really to get into that, and we don't got time for that right now. But I am going to give you insight on why I said that. It said it because it says we're supposed to deal with binding it to your hand and binding it to your head, right? That's what the phylactery or the tefillin are. Binding it to your hand or your head. That's the phylactery or the tefillin, right? And that's what it's focusing on. So that's the situation right there when it's dealing with that. So again, I appreciate all y'all for being on here. We definitely appreciate having our brother in the building tonight. Brother Divine Prospect being in the building tonight. That's a big up. Just being able to be on your radar that you just took time out to pop up on my lowly station is an honor. I respect a lot of stuff you do. I actually got some stuff that I talked about that you did where you really broke down stuff to the rabbi. You went in hard, right? So I definitely appreciate that. And before we close out, I just want us to hear our artist of the week. There we go. Because I'm an Israelite. What an Israelite. All right, everyone. So I thank you guys for being on here with me tonight. Appreciate all of y'all. And I just want to bid you all Layla Tov and Shabbat Shalom.